And a lady was sitting next to me, only the two of us. She's a Zimbabwean. And she was shivering. And I asked her, "Are you cold?" And she was scared to speak. And she said, "I'm scared of you." I said, "Why?" She said, "Because you hate foreigners." I engaged her for 2 hours from Cape Town. And I said to her that the great Nelson Mandela, the Ethiopians had to give him a passport because he loves law and order. He didn't go to other countries on the back of a crocodile for as long as I'm alive. Everybody coming to this country, come through the right channels and you shall be feeling our great hospitality in this country. And as a Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture, I want to say to you, many people see this department as a lesser department. They are about to see. I'm already, truth must be told, I'm already the best minister. I'm not saying that. News 24, my biggest hater, said that this morning. So who am I to argue with my haters if they think I'm great? But I want to end this by telling you about the GNU. You know, great men take the road less traveled. It was very easy for Nelson Mandela to be populist. But he didn't. He took a decision. We all look forward to the name of the Springbok. Mandela was a saint. We all look forward to the Springbok name change. Majority of us sport people. Nelson Mandela fought and he said, we shall retain the name of the Springbok. Today, the Springboks are the ones keeping this country together. And that we have to admit. Mandela saw that 30 years ago. What us mere mortals are only seeing now. Somebody says, how dare you have such a xenophobe speak at such a function like today? I was jumping in the plane and a lady was sitting next to me, only the two of us. She's a Zimbabwean. And she was shivering. And I asked her, "Are you cold?" And she was scared to speak. And she said, "I'm scared of you." I said, "Why?" She said, "Because you hate foreigners." I engaged her for 2 hours from Cape Town. And I said to her that the great Nelson Mandela, the Ethiopians had to give him a passport because he loves law and order. He didn't go to other countries on the back of a crocodile. He had to get a passport from the Ethiopians because he understands countries have rules. I explained to the lady that I am not xenophobic. But every country has laws that needs to be followed. Because when you kill somebody here, we want to be able to find you. But if you are undocumented, we will not be able to find you. And there are some amongst us that is using foreigners, illegal foreigners, to reverse the gains of the freedom fighters. Because then they don't need to pay them a living wage. Then they don't need to register them for UIH. They still want back the kafir mentality that they can lord over people with a darker color than them. Hence, they act like they care for those foreigners. And they don't. They are using them because they want to lord over them the way they lorded over us before we were released from the bondage of apartheid. You have scientists from Zimbabwe being gardeners in this country. How can that be right? You have teachers being waiters from Zimbabwe. How can that be right? They are being exploited. I will never be a spectator to the exploitation of another black man or white man or colored man for as long as I'm alive. everybody coming to this country, come through the right channels, and you shall be feeling our great hospitality in this country.
Interesting speech, guys. So you see, Gayton Mckenzie, when I listen to him, the more I listen to him and his stand against illegal immigration, the more I realize that, his fight against illegal immigration is founded somewhat upon justice, you see. It's about the illegality of immigration, right? Immigration in itself, I really do not think it's an error for him, but the illegality attached to it. And if if we go back to the roots of this problem in South Africa, according to the words of the former Home Office Minister, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi in South Africa, he speaks about how, South Africa really clutched onto the UN document on refugees and asylum, the whole policy about refugees and asylum, without ticking the fact that it wouldn't agree to some clauses in the list of the points or the policies that actually had to guide its reintegration into the global order. I think by 1994, South Africa had been a pariah state, and so it was doing everything it could to be recognized once more and loved by the wider committee of nations. And so as a result, there was a much more both Pan-Africanist and also a move, I think, by the Government of National Unity headed by Nelson Mandela at that time to really open the gates of South Africa to, asylum seekers and refugees and, foreigners from different parts of Africa to seek refuge in that regard, and hopefully to kind of like transmit this message of solidarity and wipe out the bad image that the apartheid regime had actually impinged on the nation at the time. But along the lines, as the ANC now ruled in the democratic era of South Africa, the government actually had begun to see a shift in its thinking and as regards, foreigners and refugees and asylum seekers. And so Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi in the white papers is actually published online. He actually, it was a proposal for the government to really consider a new policy and set of policies to really address the immigration question in South Africa. But at this time, foreigners had actually flooded South Africa, and I think the part of the whole matter that actually irritates Gayton Mckenzie the most is the fact that a lot of gang members and drug cartels under the wings of that migration at the time that was illegal now have some of the biggest bases, headquarters in South Africa, according to him. If I listen to one of his speeches, and so in trying to push out in his argument, Gayton Mckenzie's argument, in trying to fight against illegal foreigners, he's trying to fight against the drug problem, the prostitution problem, the smuggler problem, and all the other vices that have actually, according to him, come into South Africa through illegal immigration. And so if you listen to this speech here where he speaks about how Nelson Mandela also wouldn't have tolerated illegal immigration, although Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi tries to blame Nelson Mandela. I think I made a video on this channel once that, the whole thing with the porous borders in South Africa was due to Nelson Mandela's drive to kind of like attain or try to pursue a sort of solidarity move with other African nations around South Africa at the time, you see. But that was a reason why, there were now new border guards that were being set up during Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi's time. And he takes the root cause of the porous borders in South Africa back to Nelson Mandela. But now we see, that those porous borders now became a route for these drug cartels and all that. So Gayton Mckenzie argues that if he fights to get Home Office and police, that in trying to kick out the illegal foreigners from South Africa, he will be addressing the drug problem, the prostitution problem, all other vices that have entered into South Africa. And so this is what he is. But then we see that he's actually arguing that although Nelson Mandela had this form of solidarity with African nations, and he would always travel to Ethiopia with a passport. And so Nelson Mandela did not condone the illegality that was attached to this whole free movement of asylum and refugees. And so this is actually where, he tries to fight against illegal immigration and argues that illegal immigration is one of the reasons why a lot of South Africans are jobless. Although many would argue, I think many have also argued that, Gayton Mckenzie argues that South Africans are not working in restaurants and hotels when you go to the hotels and restaurants in South Africa, the only people you see working there are immigrants, mostly from Zimbabwe, Malawi, and Mozambique. And South Africans are jobless because of that. And probably many of you have asked in the comments I've heard that maybe South Africans do not want to work in restaurants and what many Western countries, would want to term low underclass jobs. Maybe South Africans do not want to work in those jobs, and so that's why they've decided not to work. But then, a lot of critics as well also support Gayton Mckenzie's stand against illegal immigration, and that illegal immigrants should be deported and only legal foreigners should remain in the country. And that's actually now the case we're really trying to understand with the whole Miss South Africa Chidinma issue, where we don't know if probably she's going to be, she's not going to be contesting as for Miss SA, and maybe South Africa will have to miss out of the competition, or would there be a second option B? Would there be a backup plan for that? And it's really tricky, how to ascertain the citizenship of a person in South Africa now. So probably the Home Office would have to review its papers on what are the actually requirements to be a citizen in South Africa. Is it just enough to be born in South Africa, or do you need a passport? Do you need to, definitely you need a passport, but do you need to be really born there? Can you actually live some time and be naturalized? And do you need to really have a valid physical passport showing that you have actually fulfilled the requirements of being South African, despite the fact that you've been born there? So it's really tricky, really dicey, and I'm sure Gayton Mckenzie is actually going to have a wild one with that case. But anyway, Gayton Mckenzie is always firm in his speech, in his approach to the issues that bother him, especially the ones he's passionate about, and he wouldn't mince words. He says things the way they are, and so that's one of the things we would expect. But as we keep on studying and watching, Gayton Mckenzie in this video has actually explained one of the reasons why he detests illegal immigration, and that he's not a xenophobe. He's not xenophobic, but he actually just wants justice and legality attached to the immigration policies in South Africa. So what do you guys think about his speech in this video? Really interesting. I really enjoyed the speech a lot, but share your thoughts in the comments.